What's up everyone, Alex here. So you've had your shiny new Odin 2 for a little while and are probably wondering about some things you could do with it. One of the things I wanted to get back into again was custom high definition textures for games on the Gamecube, Wii and PlayStation 2. However, the process of importing them is different to how I did it on the first Odin, basically because of Android 13 and how it doesn't typically let you access the Android data folder. Even if you place the textures into the correct folder in the emulator and it says it loaded them, it doesn't actually work. So here is the method I use to import textures into Dolphin. First, make a backup of your user data in Dolphin. Do this by going to the Settings, Config, User Data and then Export your data. In this video, I'll be transferring it to my PC, but you could do all of this just on your device. Whatever you do, you'll need either WinRAR for PC, or another file compression tool, or RAR on the Google Play Store for your Odin. Download the texture pack for the game you want and unzip it on your computer. If they aren't already, they need to be in a folder with the same serial number as the version of the game you have. The easiest way to check the version you have is by going to the game in Dolphin and holding the button or long pressing to open the game and then looking at the top of the new window where it says Game Properties. The following is the version of the game you have and that is how you name the folder. Place the textures in a folder with that name. Next, when you have all your game folders with textures in them, you need to place them in the correct directory of Dolphin. Extract your user data from earlier and then navigate to the load and then textures and place all the game folders in here. At this point you can also add any other files you need, such as memory cards from another device. Next you need to make a zip of your user data. Navigate to the folder where you extracted your user data and compress all of these folders into a zip file. It has to be a zip or Dolphin will not recognize it for import. When your zip is ready, we can go back to Dolphin now and back to user data where we can import this zip file. Select it. You'll be prompted that your previous data will be erased. If you're happy to go ahead, then proceed with the import. After this is all done, you should delete the zips you have as they'll be quite large in size, and this is all done on the internal hard drive of the Odin 2, so you'll want to have as much free space as possible. HD textures can add up a lot and be almost double the size they came in, so unless you have a Pro or Max model, you're going to run out of space fast if you plan to have several games with custom textures. When the import is finished, your textures will be correctly added to Dolphin and we can begin to test if the textures work. Back in Dolphin, go to the Settings, Graphics Settings, down to Advanced and then turn on Load Custom Textures and Prefetch Custom Textures. I would actually recommend doing this on a per game basis, as there might be games that need a lot of RAM to use prefetch custom textures, so you might want to have this option off for certain games. And that's it, you can start playing your games with new high definition textures. Depending on the texture pack, you might be able to realize straight from the title that it has worked, as the title of the game might change to something like 4K or HD next to it now. Otherwise, you can just inspect the world yourself. It should seem fairly obvious based on the detail. Old textures would look stretched and muddy, and the new ones should seem more detailed with more pixel density. As for the game's settings, I would actually recommend going with Vulkan and an internal resolution of 3x. We could definitely do better on the Odin 2, but in my opinion at 1080p we get to appreciate the detail here without having to push the system harder, and probably saving some battery life overall. And of course we want to see all of this in widescreen, so make sure your aspect ratio is 16:9 and your widescreen hack is on. Widescreen hack doesn't work for all games and you may need an AR or Gecko code to fix it or have it work in the first place. Generally a good place to start is looking at the Dolphin wiki for the game you want to play and see what info is there. You may find some info on how to make it run better or codes to fix or improve the gaming experience. You can add these codes to your cheats in the game. First make sure Enable Cheats is on, then hold the button or long press the game you want and go down to Edit Cheats. You can download cheats here, but they're general game cheats, not for improving the game. Below there is an add option under AR and Gecko, depending which one you need to add. Open that and you'll be able to name the code yourself in name, and code is where you need to type or paste the code you've found. Save this and then back out. Make sure to turn this on before you leave and the code should be activated. Here is the 60 FPS code I used from the Mario Sunshine Dolphin wiki for the NTSC version of the game. This has worked for me, so I'll just show it here as an example. And then you're ready to go. If you followed that correctly, then you should be ready to play one of your favorite games better than ever, with custom textures, working widescreen, and any cheats you need to improve the experience further. It's a little bit of effort and uses a bunch of storage, but it can really add to the gaming experience. In my opinion, I think it makes having something like the Odin 2 that much more worthwhile, and is truly one of the best ways to experience games at this quality on the go. For the rest of this video, I'll showcase some of the textures I've gotten for games on the Gamecube and Wii, and any tips I've found to improve the experience further. So let's check out some games. So first off, we're going to start with F-Zero GX. With some of these games, I'll just go in the settings and show you what I am using. So here I'm using Vulkan with a 16:9 ratio, 3x resolution, and when it comes to the textures, I have both options on load and prefetch. So we're going to turn prefetch off for a couple of games because it does use quite a bit of RAM. And you can see here it says load custom textures. So what happened to me actually was when I used to do this on the Odin, I would just use my PC and I'd grab the folders and just chuck them inside the Dolphin file inside Android. So the problem here is if you look at your internal storage and you have just files there which are not in Android or data, you can put stuff in there and your device will access those folders. So I actually have a Citra folder there. That's why my 3DS custom textures worked flawlessly, because they weren't trying to access the Android data folder. So with Dolphin, the data of that emulator is inside Android data. And inside that folder it has all the emulation folders and things, it accesses game settings, memory cards, and so on. So when I tried to manually just chuck those texture folders in there from my PC, it even said on the device, loaded textures. It recognized files were there, but they didn't actually load. So that's why we have this method here of exporting and importing data. Also, I apologize for the big blocks of text earlier, but so as I said, I'll be doing a video on PlayStation 2 textures, and for that we have to actually manually move the texture folders from inside the internal storage over to the Android data folder that has the PlayStation 2 emulator. And you can do that with anything that's inside Android data. So I kind of wanted to cover my bases here and say, well, if you just want to quickly chuck in some textures for Dolphin, you could move them to the internal storage and then move them over to Android data. But I'd already done this video showing this method of importing and exporting the data for Dolphin, and maybe that will be more useful for some people, as it just kind of like covers more things, as it just like exports the entire Dolphin data. And you can also mess around with that on your computer and then like zip it up again and then push it back onto your Android device. So next we're going to have a look at Metroid Prime 2, and this is a case where a couple of things going on. So here I've turned off prefetch custom textures, because when I had it on, in here it showed that the memory went up to like way above 90%, and the game would keep crashing. So once I realized this, I turned off prefetch custom textures. Also, this game has some weird widescreen errors. I found this culling fix. I will leave a link to this in the description, as this wasn't on the Dolphin wiki, and that seemed to solve the problem. But for some reason I have two of them on, and I have another widescreen fix that isn't on. And it's mostly working, so I've left it like this. I'll probably have to tweak this later. But getting these textures working on this game, I actually wanted to get it working on Metroid Prime 1, but I played that on my Odin Pro, and I'd love to play the remaster, and I'd like to see that running on Yuzu Android. I think one day it will run on this device, but check out these textures. They are so crisp. It doesn't even look like a normal floor pattern, but it looks really interesting. So I don't know the usual methods people are using to upscale their textures. Maybe it's all done by AI. I don't think they're just finding similar textures and replacing them. But it looks really cool. Honestly, seeing these games with these really crisp new textures is awesome. So I needed to mention as well that I have these games running at 3x. So the Odin 2 can go higher. Obviously, it can do a lot better than this. But with these textures, there's more stuff going on, and at 3x that's 1080p, which is the same as the screen, so you're basically getting all the fidelity you need. If you're pushing it past 3x, then you're also putting more stress on the system and probably using more battery life. Alright, up next we're going to have a look at Rogue Leader. We're going to have a look at some settings here. In config and then down to advanced, there is this setting called override emulated CPU clock speed. This is something I used to mess around a lot with MMJR to get games running better. Here I've specifically picked 67%. So back on MMJR, you could only move in increments of 5%. Also, I'm just going to show you I've turned prefetch custom textures off, just in case, as it might add too much RAM. Rogue Leader and Rebel Strike are both very taxing games, so I just don't want to push things too much. But yeah, in MMJR, when you use the override overclock, you could only move in increments of 5%, and that was really annoying, because I was so sure if I could move by 1%, I might have gotten a couple of games just a bit better at running on those devices. So here, being able to move at 1% increments was amazing. I was testing the tutorial level in Tatooine, and I was looking at an area where there was like lots of motion blur and stuff in the background, and I was tweaking that override until it just seemed like a perfect balance of the audio not messing up and the game running better. So I wish I tested more levels, because I think it's going to be more taxing in the open world environments like on the planets. But I felt that 67% was the right value. But yeah, these look at the galaxy here, look at the space. It looks really beautiful. I've not seen this level look this good, and this is something I might play soon. So I'm kind of looking forward and hoping this runs smoothly, but I do know there are areas where it is not, so I'm just going to have to see how it goes. I was also really hopeful to show off Rebel Strike in this video, but I just kept getting too many problems with that game, and I decided not to. So here's Super Mario Sunshine again. I feel like I've been showing this game a lot lately, but with the HD textures, look at that beach. And I was like, I gotta check out this level just a little bit, because it has these massive reflective panels which look incredible. And I wanted to see if the HD textures actually were affected in this reflective panel, but it looks so good. I honestly, every time I look at Sunshine, I kind of want to play it some more, and that's like part of the point of these textures. They get you like a little bit excited again. I honestly think this is probably the best way you could probably play this game. I don't think this effort had gone into the Switch port of Super Mario Sunshine, which I barely played. So yeah, this looks gorgeous. And of course, got to show a little bit of Zelda, as I shown earlier in the video. I think in my review of the Odin 2, I mentioned custom textures, and I thought it was working because it said it loaded custom textures, and I wasn't really looking properly. I just kind of like briskly looked at it, and then I noticed things were wrong recently, and that's why I wanted to do these videos. So now you can see that everything just looks really sharp here. I'm not sure if these were the textures that were taken from the Wii version. I think there's a few different texture packs you can get for this game, but I've linked the one I've used in the video description. And that's it for GameCube games. Now we're going to go over to Wii. There's two of them. This one's Super Mario Galaxy 2. I wanted to show some of my settings here as well, especially the controls. I've made a couple of profiles. I have one which is General Odin and one for Metroid Prime 3. We're going to have a look at these because I had some massive problems with the pointer. So I'm going to show you what I did to fix this. So first of all, we're just going to load up the profile for Odin because I just thought it made sense for me to. I have a default profile which has the gyro controls, and this is something we're going to take off. So I've got Mario Galaxy loading up my Odin profile. Here we go into buttons. I have the A button set to where the A button should be, the B button on the trigger, so it feels like a Wii remote. I'm just whacking 1 and 2 on the Y and A buttons. Select and start where select and start should be. We've got the D-pad. We got sideways toggle and upright toggle. I put those on L3 and R3 because I thought, why not? I'm not using them. For motion simulation, moving the Wii remote around, I've got it set to the right stick. I've got recenter pushed on the back on one of the M buttons here. Probably don't need to use it, but I've got it there just in case. Here is where the range of the Wii remote, so how far it will go to the edges of the screen, and auto hide is important for a game like Super Mario Galaxy. We don't want to see the pointer all the time, so after it's used we want to move that. The Wii remote shake I've put onto the X button, and these are the rest of the settings for motion simulation. I don't think I've put anything else here on my Odin profile. Here in motion input, so this is like using kind of like the gyro controls. If it's set, these were set automatically for me. So here I've turned it off, so enabled is off, but it was still registering things. So here I actually had to clear all of these inputs. So it said something like Android blah blah blah, so it was registering like the gyro within the device, and that was causing me problems. So I had to unmap all of those. Next in the nunchuck, we're setting that quite simply. On the left side, C and Z on the triggers. We got the stick on the left analog stick. And then we've got shake on there as well, which I've just mapped to R1 here. So we've got shake mapped on both controllers, and those are just close together if I want to use those. Obviously this is all just preferential. You choose whatever you want to choose, but I'm just kind of explaining it here and showing what I did. So here's Super Mario Galaxy 2, loaded up the textures with my Odin profile. And you can see here that the pointer is working really well, like it's just going where I need it to go with my right stick. Obviously on Super Mario Galaxy 2 you can just quickly select options here with the controller to pick your file and level, but when we start to use Yoshi or grab little star bits and stuff, we're going to have to use the IR, the Wii motion. And this game looks absolutely gorgeous with some textures on. I kind of can't really remember what it used to look like before. I forget what the resolution is typically for Wii games, but with these extra textures, it's just an extra bonus. And I still haven't played Super Mario Galaxy 2. It was something I thought I'd play on the Odin, but there were problems with like this EFB hack where you had to turn it. It was on and off to get the performance better, but then you had to swap it if you wanted to actually use the Wii motion, otherwise the pointer wouldn't work. With the Odin 2, we don't have this problem. It all works exceptionally well. And now that I figured out my pointer problem, because it just would not work at all, and I had some people on the Discord tell me that it's really easy to set up, and I was really confused why it wasn't working. And for me, it was basically unmapping all those gyro controls, so that was what was causing me problems. So if you were having problems too, I'm hoping that is what happened to you as well. But yeah, you can see it's really easy for me to just like move around, grab stuff, and press the B button to just use Yoshi's tongue for these levels. So yeah, this should be a really smooth, seamless experience to play Super Mario Galaxy 2. And you can see when I'm done with the pointer, it will just kind of fade away on its own, and that's nice. Because usually you just have to put that pointer somewhere, and sometimes it like sparkles and stuff. So yeah, I really love the Odin 2. It just feels way more like we've got the power, we've got like more seamless experience. Well, I was going to say less faffing around, but I'm doing these videos, so you know, just in case if you're having the problems I did, or you need a little help to get it all set up, then here we go. And last game we're going to have a look at is Metroid Prime 3. So I'm going to go over to the settings. Vulkan 16:9, widescreen hack on. I think there's a widescreen on in the Wii section. 3 times the resolution. Not going to need more than 1080p. I've turned prefetch custom textures off. I think I was having problems with this too, where it kept crashing. So turning that off gave us more RAM, and now the game is running a lot better. So here's my profile for Metroid Prime 3 that I get loaded every time, because Metroid Prime has a lot of these motion controls. You need to actually play the game in certain areas. I really hate sliding that because I'm using gestures at the moment, so I keep like chucking the app out, and I don't mean to do that. Anyway, the buttons. So A and B, as I did last time. I've set the 1 button to R1. I think that is the map, so that's a bit more like Metroid Prime. The 2 button, I think that's a hint button, and I've just stuck that on the D-pad, so just somewhere out the way where I'm not really using it. Select and start. I actually changed select later, and I'll show you why. On the D-pad, down was for missiles, so I've set that to X, kind of like Prime as well, so I've made that the missile button. Don't think I need any toggles for sideways or upright, but I may be wrong later. To motion simulation, the point is all set to the right stick. Basically the same yaw and pitch I had before. I'm not having problems with that now, so those are the settings I'm using. So tilt, left C, so those are the back buttons. So that's when, you know, you have to like tilt the Wii remote left and right like this. There's a couple of occasions you have to do that, so I've put those on the back buttons there. And swing, so when you're in a ball, you have to swing up to jump. I've just whacked this on the Y button up top. It says Y, but it's like currently, I can't remember which profile I've choose. And down here, forward and backwards. So I put those on L3 and R3. So whenever I need to like push forward or pull away with the Wii remote, it's those 2 buttons. And we got motion input off, and again I had to clear everything that was in here. So if you've got something mapped to these, that's what was causing me problems. Like I couldn't aim at anything, so I had to turn all that off. And in the nunchuck, this is all set up very nunchuck style. So, oh, C is morph ball, so I put that to B over there, a bit more like Prime. Z is the left trigger. I think I just had to remind myself that it was the left trigger. We put the stick onto the left analog stick. And there's a couple of motions here, swing with the nunchuck, which has something to do with the grapple hook. I've just stuck those on the left shoulder and left button. I'm hoping that doesn't cause issues later if I was to keep playing this. So I think that is everything. I think that is the controller profile I have set up for Metroid Prime 3. I think it's working. But you'll see later that I changed the select button to L1 because trying to select my visor whilst holding select was just a real pain in the ass. So as you can see, it's running basically how I'd play a Metroid Prime game, except when I use the right stick, you know, it's actually like manually aiming like it would with the Wii remote. I also can't remember Metroid Prime 3 very well. I know I played it once on the Wii, so I can't remember what the textures actually looked like, but yeah, you know, we've got textures loaded in here. It looks pretty nice. I think some of the doors and stuff show quite clearly that there is some like high definition textures going on, but whilst recording this I was just really focused on like trying to make sure the game worked and the controls were working as they should. I did a video on this on the original Odin, and I think I showed like a controller profile I was using to play this game, well, decently, I suppose. I can't remember if the performance was that good, but you can see here that I think there's some stutter here and there, and I'm not sure if that's a cache problem, if it's just caching something. if that does happen to be a thing later, there might actually be some settings you might need to tweak. So maybe there's a couple of hacks that might fix that. You could always go down to 2x resolution, but if you're using custom textures, I don't think that's a good idea. It's kind of a waste, you know. But then one of the things that probably will work very well is going to over the clock speed by underclocking. Maybe, I don't know, maybe down to like 20-25% below 100, so around 75%. I can't really think of many cases where like jacking up the overclock to 400% was the answer. I think there's a couple of games where it is, but I can't remember which ones. And that was back on MMJR, so I haven't actually used the official version of Dolphin much, so this is quite a new experience for me on Android. But yeah, I realize that I have to now hold select to pick the visor, and doing that is just really awkward. I have to like keep moving my thumb in a weird way just to like select the visor. So by this point, I had enough of that. So I've just made a little save. I've backed out, gone over to Wii input, into the profile, loading the profile just in case, because I have had problems. See this? I'm trying to just swipe up the profile. It's in such a stupid position. So loading my Metroid Prime 3 profile, going to buttons, and then just quickly going over to select and mapping that to L1, as I felt that was a good button to be picking visors with. I think I'm just trying to remember if L1 is set to anything else. I think I just scroll through here quickly and go, did I put L1 on something else? Because I know on the nunchuck, the L1 is probably where the C button would be, but I moved the C button to one of the face buttons so I could morph ball easier. So I think the L1 button was free. Also, Motion Plus, I don't know if there's a downside to having it on and off with certain games. I guess you could just leave it on. I don't know if that messes up with like older games that just use regular motion and were not like designed to have Motion Plus. But anyway, so I've saved the profile. And when I save the profile to Metroid Prime 3, because every time I load Metroid Prime 3, it is loading my Metroid Prime 3 profile. So I know it's going to work as it should. And there I go, holding L1, and now it's a lot easier to select the visors. But yeah, I need to find out if you can map the same button to different inputs. So here I'm trying to press the keypad, and I'm realizing I'm having to use the right stick to aim, and then I have to like go into a claw grip to press A to actually select, and it made it really difficult to pick those. So I just fast forwarded this because it took me way too long. So I mean, I'll probably look it up, but if anybody knows, you know, you can tell me in the comments if you can map two buttons to the same, to map a button to two different buttons or more. That's what I'm trying to say. And here is where I get to test some other Wii functionalities. So I come over and it wants you to pause, so I press L3 and then I press the M2 button on the back, or is it M1 to twist, and then I press R3 to push. So I've got the twists on the back and I've got the pull and push to the left stick and right stick. That seemed kind of natural to me. I'm not sure how much you have to do that in this game, but you have to do it twice here. To be honest, I probably could have cut up this footage a little more, but because this game has some weird functionality, and I just before, I would like leave this footage as is and show myself just like playing, testing it and tweaking what I need to tweak and showing that the controls work and that the textures look kind of nice. But it's really cool to have all these textures in Dolphin. There's only a couple of Wii games I want to check out. There are so many textures, but honestly, the file sizes can really rack up. And although there'd be more games I'd love to just like have a look at, I think if I was to play some more games with high definition textures, seriously, I'd probably have to swap some games out, because I have the base model of the Odin and the Odin 2, and yeah, the file sizes just really rack up. There's only 128 gigabytes on this thing, so I almost wish I had a different model just to have more internal storage for this sort of thing. But yeah, so that's been my video on custom textures for Dolphin, and I guess some graphics settings and also just some general setup and some Wii controls, because I know that it can be quite confusing for people. So if that interested you, I hoped that helped you in some way. But yeah, that's the end of the video. Please give it a like, hit the bell icon if you want to see more, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye bye.